Hi, I'm Jonathan Fields, and this is Good Life Project. So my guest today is Erika Napoletano. She's an author, speaker. She runs her own media venture, and she's got a book called The Power of Unpopular. We're going to jam on kind of an interesting conversation on this, and about why we may talk about it and why we may not want to talk about it. So awesome to be hanging out with you today.
Well, thanks for having me. Great to see you.
As always. So we had a really interesting conversation just before we came on camera. And it's funny too, because we're both authors, and there's this thing that happens with authors, and I imagine it happens with musicians, like anybody, or like artists, people who like create a show or something like that. They're like, you work so hard on this thing. And you know, like with authors, very often, like 2 years of your life or something like that, and it's out there and it's in the world, and all you're talking about is that. And you believe in it, and it's everything that you put on your pen, and you're proud of it. And then there comes a time where you're like,
Yeah.
So we were talking that, you know, okay, we could jam on a whole bunch of different topics because your life is fascinating, what you're doing is really interesting, and your thoughts are just really relevant to a lot of people. And but tell me what's going on in terms of like your thought. So you have a book that came out, The Power of Unpopular, came out when?
It was just over a year ago.
Okay, so a little over a year ago, right? And if I say to you, you're like, hey, do you want to talk about The Power of Unpopular?
Not really.
So what goes on? Because I know you've spent, since like you've actually kind of done a deep dive on like why you feel this way, and is it really that you don't want to talk about it, or like what's happening here?
I think, and maybe you'll identify with this, but when you write a book, especially a nonfiction book, I mean, I write fiction as well, but my process of writing a nonfiction book is there's a purge. I mean, you pull all of those ideas out of your soul and you put them on the page.
Right.
And then I've spent the last year and a half talking about those ideas. And it's not that I'm over those ideas, it's that I've started thinking about those ideas in a new way.
Yeah.
And my own content has pushed me into a new area where I go, you know, there is power in being unpopular, and I'm not discounting that, but maybe the progression from that is me thinking that was an incomplete thought. It was a thought that needed the second half of its sentence. And it's that it's not about being unpopular. It's about getting your life to the position where you're able to make that next unpopular decision. And I started thinking about what is it that makes us able to make those unpopular decisions. And you know, then, you know, it's like somebody shakes up one of those boxes of 500 puzzle pieces and throws it up in the air, and you're like, ah! There's pieces everywhere. And now I'm picking up the pieces and trying to figure out, well, what makes us capable of that? So that's my current, you know, that's the dark place of my mind right now.
Yeah, but it's not even so dark. I mean, it's almost like, I think, and I actually see this happen in the author world a lot. And again, I imagine it happens in the music world and the art world too, and that there's also a certain amount of sort of like outside construct that wants to frame you as you're the X person. And from a business standpoint, from an entrepreneur standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, it's easier that way.
I'm the unpopular girl.
Right.
Which has always been the case.
And I was the uncertainty guy.
Yeah.
Right? And so people want to say, okay, you're the X person, because it makes it easier to compartmentalize you. It's easier for people to process who you are when they can just identify you as like, okay, she's the unpopular person, you know, by your last big body of work or your last big thing. And, you know, when you're in the middle of that thing, like you said, that's cool, because it's easy for people to know who you are, to choose you, or to bring you into organizations, to rally behind you, to understand what you're about. But as you start to evolve away from that, it becomes like a source of pain to a certain extent.
It does, and the way I've been thinking about it is sometimes, like right now, when the thoughts about being unpopular are starting to evolve, when I'm giving that talk, you know, rethinking unpopular or building the unpopular brand or whatever iteration it's taking, I feel a little bit like a sham. Because
it's not where you are right now.
It's not where I am. It's not what's making the hamster in the wheel go around. I mean, you know, to be honest, you know, this cool rocking chair is sometimes more stimulating to me than sitting and answering someone who goes, so what does it mean to be unpopular? And I'm like, just read the book.
I'm just saying, okay, let me cross off my notes. Do not ask what it means to be unpopular. We'll get strangled.
But I think we all find ourselves, whether it's with our friends or our family, the Thanksgiving table and the conversations that inevitably come up year after year, whether it's your family holiday table or whether it's a business environment, people tend to look at you with, oh, well, he's the uncertainty guy. He's the career renegade guy. And you think, well, I do have a few more redeeming qualities and ideas.
I have 3, by the way.
Yeah. It's like I have 2 fingers about to go up. I just have 2. But I think it's not bad to feel, for me, it's actually inspiring for me to have that inkling that, are you a sham? Thinking that you're a sham, Is it bad that you have that feeling? And I don't think it is, because it makes me question.
Yeah.
And it puts me in a position of, okay, if I'm feeling this way, then what's next? And that's how I get to where's next.
So I want to drill down more, though, because there's the idea of saying, okay, this is where I was at a point in time, and this is how I publicly identified and made income to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I've evolved from that. And then there's another thing that tends to happen very often, which is I've changed my mind since then.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole nother conversation that goes in your head, because it's like, okay, now where do I go with this? Because publicly I built a certain brand, a certain reputation. Like, I'm getting paid for a certain line of thought, right? And I really bought into it in the beginning, and it's cool. And some of it, there's been an evolutionary process away from it. I think I understand it better, and I can shine the light differently on the same thing. But some of it, I've learned enough or done enough data or lived enough now to just look back and say, that was just wrong.
Yeah, isn't it weird how we evolve as human beings? I've had a challenge, especially, this is new, especially in the past couple months, with being the unpopular girl. And the girl who wrote The Power of Unpopular, and she's like, love me, hate me, just don't be indifferent. I still believe all of those things. But I believe that book is it's like the forward of a whole other set of ideas.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful. I'm very glad that I sat down and wrote The Power of Unpopular, because I wouldn't be looking at my life right now and my role and how I perceive that I can impact this world in the same way if I hadn't written that book and had these doubts. The doubts are a gift, because they challenged me to, take that it's right now it's a very big jump for me to look at keynotes that I have booked for the rest of the year that are about the book and based on those principles. I still believe all of them very much, but I want to have the rest of the conversation.
Right, that's not the whole story.
No,
there's more story.
I feel like I feel like, somebody put in the DVD of The Princess Bride, and all of a sudden, the power goes out, and you're like, wait, Buttercup was just here, So what's jazzing me is framing the rest of the story, or not the next story, or the rest of the story, but the next chapter.
Yeah.
The next few chapters.
Because I think I understand what you mean by that, but deconstruct that a little bit so it's crystal clear for anyone who's sort of observing.
So the way that I actually wrote all of this out on Sunday morning, it took me 4 hours, and I had a raging headache for the rest of the day, because your
brain was about to explode.
It was soul purging stuff. I believe that our job in the world is to live our truth and to keep what we're doing from the day we're born till the day we die is we write a story, our story. And so our story is made up of 2 things. One right here is why I matter. And the other part of that is that I'm worth something. And those are 2 challenges that, especially as kids, that we have huge struggles with, because everything from, you can absolutely destroy both of those things with socioeconomic factors, clothes, appearance, academic ability. You can just obliterate anyone and take away their worth and tell them that they don't matter. And that, when you lose those two things, you stop writing your story. It's like somebody comes along and it puts a huge scribble in there.
Yeah, it's like you start writing somebody else's story.
You do. You don't write somebody else's story. You join somebody else's story. You put on this meat suit because somebody told you that you don't matter and that you're not worth anything. So why would I be me when that doesn't matter? I'm going to go be somebody who has worth and matter, and I'm going to mimic this other person. I'm going to join their life, join their story. And I saw evidence of this in my life when I look back at my first two marriages. 2. Yay. But now, as a 40-year-old woman, I go, neither of those marriages was ever going to work because those weren't my stories. I thought what you did when you fell in love is that you put your story away and you went and joined somebody else's. When it's actually very startlingly the opposite. You each have to have your own story. Yeah. For a relationship to work, you each have, and it works in personal and it works in business, you each have to have your own story. But you have this beautiful story that you write together. But if you each sat down and wrote your memoirs, this person would have stories that are exclusively theirs, and you would have stories that are exclusively yours, and you would have stories that you share together, but each are seen from a very different viewpoint, but it doesn't make them worth any less.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with that.
So it all comes together, and so the root of it is your story, which is made up of why you matter and the fact that you understand that you have worth in this world. And
I mean, they're very related also.
They are. And because, I mean, we all seek validation from somewhere. The bottom line is, what I'm coming to realize is that when you realize that you have worth and that you matter, your validation comes from here. Not here, not
or
here.
Out there.
But when you put on the meat suit, you've just given validation away to everybody else and every other source except yourself. And I've lived that. I lived that for 17 years. I know what that feels like. Actually, I know what it doesn't feel like. And I never want to have that feeling again. So I'm trying to build this complete thought process on what your story means and what happens when you stop writing. And how to reclaim that, because we've all gotten to a point in our lives where we've stopped writing for some reason. We're stumped. Maybe it's writer's block. Maybe we've lost the desire. But what happens to our lives when we stop writing? I think that is just that right there.
And I guess the big question that is like railing in my mind is, why do we stop writing?
For the only instances I can give are from my life. 2 years ago, when my boyfriend died suddenly, my life shattered. I couldn't touch, grab, feel like I had anything. I went into this 20-month long depression, and that's why I stopped writing. I didn't feel like there was any need to continue. I stopped writing when I was younger because I was living somebody else's shoulds. And by that I mean, oh, you should go to college, you should get a big corporate job, you should get married, you should be home when your husband gets home. And while all of those things have value to some people in some regard, I was doing them as check boxes.
Yeah.
And so I stopped writing because I was so busy checking boxes. Life came down to a Mad Libs form. And when you're filling in blanks, and it becomes rote. There's no creativity. There's no inspiration.
No, it's almost like I think a lot of times people end up living by default. So it's not that you're choosing not to live your own story. It's that you just never choose to live it. You just kind of like, it's easier for so many people to just kind of take what's offered up. Life is busy. Things are moving quickly. A lot of times there's stress level that's persistent in your life. It's easier not to think than to think. So if somebody serves up an option that's easier to take, whether it's the right option for you or not, you just take it because it's there.
And it's easy.
Right.
It's so easy.
And you're just looking to get through rather than saying, I'm looking to write a gorgeous story that I'd want to read and somebody else would want to read with the way I live my life.
And me writing my story isn't about necessarily wanting anybody else to read it. Mm-hmm. It's
a good distinction, actually.
I think that, can I steal that?
Yeah.
Because
I'm pretty sure I stole it from someone else.
I'm going to re-steal it and repackage it and use different words and make it uniquely mine.
Excellent.
But that's an incredible distinction, because when you put on the meat suit, you're writing a story you want other people to read.
Yeah.
You're writing a story for other people to read, not for yourself. The story I want to write is the one where I crawl into bed at night, under the comforter, and I've got the flashlight, and it's after lights out, and mom's going to check and see if I'm in bed, but I'm reading by the flashlight.
Right.
That's the story I want to write. So I want to read it. That excites me and takes me to places that I forgot I'd been. Mm-hmm. And makes me remember what it felt like to be there.
Yeah.
Because you don't remember people, pictures, or places. You remember how each made you feel. Mm-hmm. That's what shapes our memories.
Yeah. I think so many people believe that you can't go back there anymore, though. I think so many people reach a certain point in life or a certain station in life where you're not there anymore. You've almost forgotten that you ever felt that way.
Yeah.
And you get so far away from it, so dissociated from the visceral memory of being in that place that you just no longer believe it's even possible to go back. You're too far down the rabbit hole.
I can get people out of that, though.
Yeah. So talk to me about
I love doing that. I'm the world's worst fidgeter. I can't sit still. But when I'm doing a workshop or I'm doing a keynote, I have everyone in the room close their eyes. You always have the reluctant viewer. I'm not doing it. But have them close their eyes and think about their first kiss. Mm. You see what your face just did?
Nah, I know the exact, I could walk you through it. I don't necessarily want to.
Right.
It wasn't pretty, but.
Mine was Trey Mallard. Oh, I had a last name that sounds like a duck. It was church camp, and I must have been in 4th or 5th grade. And it was messy and it was awkward. But the cool thing about that is that you think it's hard to go back. But Jonathan, think about your first kiss.
Yeah.
You're years back. There's volumes of experiences you've had since then, but just like that, you can go back. So to me,
but it's different too. Easy. The distinction to me, and I'm somebody who actually believes that you can go back, just to make it clear. But I think, the experience I've had through a lot of conversations, there's a distinction between remembering what it was like and believing that you can some way reorient the nature of your life, your relationships, your career, whatever it may be, so that you're actually, you can reclaim the ability to feel that way every day from this moment forward.
And I'm a huge believer in that. And we have a secret similar background. So I used to be a hedge fund attorney, right? I used to be a financial advisor for one of the top 3 wirehouses. There's a disclaimer: past performance is not indicative of future results. I wish everyone would plaster that on a wall somewhere in their house where they had to walk by it every day, because you can't, can I swear?
Sure.
I never have. You can't unfuck anything. If it is fucked, it is fucked. So there are so many people who waste their time trying to unfuck things. It's like, all right, that is fucked. Let it be fucked and move on. What's next? I mean, that's not like, because if your relationship with your wife or your spouse, if it's fucked, it's fucked. There's no going back. But what you can do is have a mutual agreement to, all right, we can either leave it fucked, or we can have a mutual agreement to start from this point forward. And it's not a blank slate. You still have all that history and all those memories and experiences and feelings and emotions. But there's a mutual agreement. It's the same agreement that you have to have with yourself to have that next better life. I mean, with all the consulting work that I do, and I get asked time and time again what I get out of it. Well, I get off on helping people become that next better version of themselves. I don't believe you'll ever be your best self. I believe you can be your next better version, though, because it's a journey. If you become your best self, then what the hell do you do from there? I'm like, I'm going to go get a taco because I'm done. I'm out of here. I want the journey.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, there's Daniel Gilbert wrote a book called Stumbling on Happiness or Stumbling Onto Happiness a number of years back. And the research that sort of like was really highlighted in the book was how, as human beings, we are horrible at what he calls affective forecasting. Meaning, like, I think that if I do this today, that in 20 years, if I, that I'm going to work really hard, because if I make $10 million and have $10 million in the bank in 20 years, I'm going to feel this way. I'm quite sure of it.
Oh, yeah, because this is given.
Right.
$10 million equals...
Right. And then when you get there, you feel nothing like it. And it can be 6 months, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. But we are terrible at projecting how we believe we're going to feel when we achieve a certain end, in some future date. Yeah. We're terrible at it. In fact, what he showed was it's actually more accurate to find somebody who's achieved what we're trying to achieve and ask them how they feel now. Because their response will be more accurate than how we'll feel when we get there after we achieved it. And even though they're not us. And so, which ties in with what you're saying, because it's like, when you think about, okay, this is the person I want to become, like, final, like, that's my end point. Even if you got there, how you think you would feel is going to be radically different than how you'll actually feel. And what tends to happen is that you get there and you say, well, just a little bit more. Just a little bit further. I'm almost there, but I need another $1 million. I need like one more person in my life. I need just a little bit more.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough.
So it's interesting to kind of like
something
chunk it down and focus more on like my goals are like, my goal is to evolve into like this next. So I like this concept because it doesn't have that same finality, and because it's you're probably better at forecasting how you're going to feel in a nearer time frame.
I know that. I mean, when I set out, I'm a horrible planner, but I'm also kind of a logistical planner to a fault. Like, when I'm coming up for the weekend, I'm going to do this on Saturday, I'm going to do this on Sunday. Sometimes it just goes haywire, but I feel better having the plan in place because that's my own neurosis, my little OCD kicking in. But I never think about how I'll feel. I want the feeling to be a surprise. I want to be just delighted, blindsided about, I didn't expect that. Because if I think, oh my God, when I go for the bike ride, I'm going to be so happy. And then when I get home and I'm going to see my dog, I'm going to be really happy. And then what if I had a really shitty bike ride? What if I almost got hit by a car? Which happens more times than not. But what if I almost get hit by a car? What if I get home? What if my dog has like gotten into the bathroom trash can again and decorated the apartment again? None of that lives up to my expectation. So when it comes to feeling, I don't have expectations. When it comes to tangible milestones, I tend to have more expectations attached to those. Like, by Q3 this year, my cash flow will have increased X% over last year. But there's always a why behind it for me. Why is that important to me? It's not a checkbox. It's because I have done this, this, and this that has been really important to me in my business. Because my goals for next year are to make my business this. It's all tied to
doesn't
evolution.
the why, right, but doesn't the why get to, if you keep asking the why, it eventually gets emotional.
It does, yeah.
So it's so fascinating to me that you say, okay, what I'm planning is the activity, but I don't want to actually build in, I'm doing it like, I'm the happiness. I'm not chasing, okay, I'm doing this because I know it's going to make me, like 5x happier.
Yeah.
So you don't want to set the expectation for the emotion, but what about the desire for the emotion?
I think you can have the desire, but you've just brought me to another idea, which is when you're building something out, whether it's a relationship, it's a new business, a vacation, you can't build in happiness.
Totally agree with that.
And so, but what you can do is go, I would enjoy these things very much. And if everything goes well, then hilarity might ensue. But I think if you get so wrapped up in how you're going to feel when you do something, I think you're taking away a lot of joy from yourself. And not just from yourself, but from other people around you. I have been the person where somebody, 2 weeks ago, one of the books I wrote won an award. And I said a really dick thing. What my literary agent was, this is amazing. And I said, well, it's really more for my co-author than it is for me. And she goes, no, this is amazing. And I'm like, yep, I was just a dick. We're built to discount ourselves as opposed to, oh my God, I just won an award. Who the fuck would have thought I would have? Me? It's awesome. I couldn't even give myself that moment because I was like, I had to fly to New York and 8 hours to take the plane. I was on the ground in New York for 16 hours before I was back on a plane. And I was just so wrapped up in all the logistics that I didn't allow myself to actually have fun. And so you can't build in happiness, but I think we can cut ourselves a whole lot more slack on, you know what, when you hit that.
Yeah. Well, I think we can do things that we know in the past have made us feel good.
Yeah.
But the delicate balance is always the difference between desire and expectation.
I want to feel this way. Therefore, I should expect to feel this way.
Yeah,
and
when that's where we
has a
trip
disconnect,
ourselves up.
I think that live that disconnect.
I think almost everybody either has or is living that disconnect.
Yeah, and so I think for me, the better desire is in the evolution lane of always looking for that next better version, the next better way. I don't, that sounds bad when I look at it in the context of two ex-husbands, but looking for the next better one. There's somebody out there.
And here's my list.
Bob, you're up. Bob, can you have a seat? But from a personal and professional standpoint, I am always looking for next better because I think you can become your next better self, next better version with an amazing set of people who are constant around you because they help you achieve that. I think that's what a great relationship is. I think that's what a great business partnership is. I think that's what a great friendship is. When you have enough people around you, those front stabbers that I've talked about before, when you have front stabbers around you who go, yeah, Jonathan, no, not so much. You're cute. Yeah, I'm going to get a taco. But when you don't have those people around you, when you just have people who just nod, oh, no, that sounds great. You never have a true sounding board. So I believe in that, in evolution with people, as opposed to thinking that evolution is something you can experience without.
No, I think you need feedback mechanisms no matter what. I mean, there's no growth without data.
Right.
You know, so whether that's people, whether that's something objective, it needs to be there.
Data's sexy.
So there's, oh, thank you.
This is data.
Data.
Yeah.
But something interesting though about you said, I always want to become my next better self. This is where I get a little bit scared because I totally get what you're saying in terms of, because growth is a huge metric for me. Mm-hmm. I want to be growing all the time, which means I want real information about where I am because it helps me understand, and where I've been, it helps me understand how to better move to the next place. Simultaneously, I also want to be at peace.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be present with where I am and say, this is good. You know, so there's this really interesting dance between not forsaking the gift that is this moment, at the same time saying, I can move, like, there's more. You know, and it's a really delicate balance because one of the big motivators to actually taking the action to get to that next better self is a certain amount of discontent with your current reality.
Well, I have a way I describe it. It's possible to be content without being complacent. I think when complacency slips in, you get lazy and you don't seek better and you don't seek to grow, or you can't even experience growth because you're like, you know, you filed it in the give up basket.
Yeah.
Or you're not even conscious enough to realize that you've allowed complacency to, you know, slip into the number one slot in your life. But I think it's possible to be content with where you are and still be searching, or conscious contentment. Maybe that's a better way to put it. Where you're content, but you're aware of what's around you and who these people are and what these feelings are like. And I don't think I would have been able to deconstruct my book without a level of conscious contentment. Because I'm like, I appreciate those ideas. They still have power. But there's something over here that's kind of eating at me. So I'm proud that I've achieved that and that I put those thoughts out there. But there's something that's next. And if I'd become complacent, I wouldn't be aware of that. I would have just gone, book, done. I'm the unpopular girl. And that's cute. It's cute for a certain point in time, but I never strive to be cute. I strive to have unpopular thoughts and blunt advice that are going to help people get from where they are to fuck yeah as efficiently as possible. I've screwed up in my life enough for 17 people. Go on to if I'm someone who fits with your life, come in and let me help you make new and glorious fuck-ups. Because if you make the same fuck-ups as me, and I can actually give you a couple pointers so you can avoid those and have your own fuck-ups, that's progress. I mean, Einstein, insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's completely true. And people who aren't conscious fall into that rut, same thing over and over again. You can't come out of the rut unless you're conscious. And I think that also ties into, you can't come out of that rut. You can't take that meat suit off that you put on when you stopped writing your story and go back to writing your story unless the meat suit comes off. That meat suit's heavy to carry around. It is exhausting trying to be someone other than exactly who you are. And it's also a lot of energy that you can put into, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I see people who are different people in business and in life. And the same thing, I'm like, and I've been that person. Yeah, I probably will at some point again. I'm sadly human. Happily human, actually.
Happily.
And it takes so much more energy to be the front-facing person, to be a different person who's, you know, like the back-facing person, to maintain that dual presence. It leaves your system on empty.
It does, and we're both introverts.
Yeah.
So we talked about this last night, and when you're an introvert, it's everything I can do. When I go out and I give that keynote, when I lead that workshop, when I have that consulting session, when I'm plugged into your energy and I'm giving you what I have, that is everything I have. And I have to, and if I'm not myself during that giving, it's actually, it's an exponential amount of exhausting.
Yeah.
But if I'm 100% me when I'm doing the thing that is hardest for me, it's a whole lot easier. And it's also takes me a whole lot less time as an introvert to go recover.
Yeah, agreed.
And find my energy again. So I'm a huge advocate of taking off the meat suit and you know, honestly, not even Lady Gaga looked good in that thing. But the reason I use the phrase meat suit is because it has a shelf life. You know, you put that meat suit on, and you think you're all sexy and you're bacon. But after a while, it starts to smell. It starts to rot. The flies start to come around, and it's more of an annoyance than it is an accessory or a way of being. So when you take it off, you're lighter. You smell better. That's probably a given. Maybe just simple hygiene can help that. And you're nimble again. We lose our ability. I can't say we. When I had that meat suit on for all those years, I moved in one direction, and it sure as hell wasn't mine. When I took that meat suit off and I was like, love me, hate me, just don't be indifferent, it is amazing the permission that I gave myself to actually move and in any given direction at any time. That's what growth looks like. Where you go, you are here. It's like when you're at the mall. Godforsaken place that is. But when you're at the mall and you see that dot, you are here. And you're like, how do I get from 2264 to 1735 so I can go to Sephora and buy my cosmetics? Instead of having such a restrictive mat like that, that's a meat suit mat. Instead of looking at that dot and going, you are here. And I could be. It sounds so hippy-dippy, but I really could be any of these places. I just have to decide why I'd want to go there and what it means to me to go there.
So let's circle back to those two things and why I matter.
Yeah.
And that I have worth. How do we rebuild the story around those? How are you rebuilding the story around those right now?
For me?
Yeah.
Well, that's a great question because it's a work in progress for me. I mean, I never have to worry about wondering if I have worth or if I matter because of the people that I've earned in my life. They're the most valuable asset that I have. When I go into crisis mode, self-deprecation, flogging, not being kind to myself, destructive behavior, those are the people that I call. And it's not that I need the validation. It's that they're my front stabbers and they're there going, yeah, you're better than this. You just need to remind yourself of that, and we'll be here when you've reminded yourself. It's not pick you up and carry you and shake you and have an intervention. I've been very graced to have earned the people in my life that I've earned. And it's my job to keep earning them. And I can't continue to earn their relationships unless I recognize that I have worth and that I matter and that they're in my life because my story makes their lives better.
And these are the people, I'm guessing, the ones you're talking about right now in this moment in your life, who probably materialized after you took the meat suit off.
Yeah.
And probably never would have had you never done that.
Exactly. I have a couple of friends from, junior high and high school, but that was still a time when I was very much me before I'd gone into Shouldville and done all these things. But the people who are in my life now, I love having them there. And they're in my life because I feel they have worth and that they matter. And I love their stories. So we all keep writing together. We weave in and out of chapters, books, volumes, and it's very hard to be with someone who doesn't know why they matter or feels that they have worth. It doesn't mean that there isn't something they can do in their lives to figure out what that means for them. But it's enough to carry ourselves around every day without trying to, take somebody's hand and go, all right, I'm just going to help you write your story here because this is your, you're touching me. It's awkward. And it's also, I don't have permission to do that. Also, that's not my path. My path isn't to write your story. My path is to write my story. And our stories intersect. But it doesn't mean that I'm, going to bogart your story and make it mine.
Yeah, which requires a certain amount of vulnerability.
It does.
Because you've got to trust that person is not going to be the person who wants you to write their story through you. And also you just got to own who you are, own the fact that who you are is good enough. And
I do believe there are people out there who want other people to write their stories for them.
And there are a lot of people who write other people's stories.
And and you know what? God bless them. Let them find each other.
Yeah, and there are people who want to control other people and say, I'm going to tell you the story you need to write.
You know what you should do?
Tell me.
Yeah, those are people who like to write other people's stories. And I'm like, the only thing I should do is take the word should out of my vocabulary.
No.
I like the word want and do and did.
And I love the word invite.
Yes.
I know somebody who's brilliant who isn't the business of giving advice. But as a general rule, she always frames it, she'd say, I'd invite you to explore this. Yeah. I'd invite you to think about this.
And that's such a non-confrontational, non-intimidating way of going, and you may find yourself thinking about it later. And so somebody going, now what you should do when you leave here is A, B, and C. We've been in those keynotes, not giving them, hopefully, but we've been in the room when...
Thinking to myself, I don't think I have.
Yeah, we've been at a room where someone's given that presentation, whether it was in school, at a conference, and I just kind of want to punch him like a little baby dolphin. I'm like, don't talk at me. Talk with me. Get it? You don't even understand my story. And here you are telling me what I need to be doing. I'm speechless. I don't have anything to say to that. All I can do is tell you what worked in my life, my brilliant screw-ups and my, modest successes, and hoping that you won't make those same mistakes and you'll have mistakes that are yours, that'll help you write your story. I want everybody to realize that they have a story.
Yeah.
And that it matters. It matters to somebody. Sometimes I do what I would consider to be the most simple consulting sessions with clients, and they just need that over the hurdle. And the emails that I get back in return, they're like a week, a month, a year later, you may not remember me, but we talked on. I was like, of course I remember you. And they're like, this is everything that's happened because you spent that hour with me. And I'm like, well, fuck me the next time I think I don't matter. Thank you. People sharing their stories with you. When you invite that in, that's a very vulnerable place for both them to be and for you to be, because I don't share with people who aren't open to hearing it. I don't want to share with those people because it's energy wasted. I want to preach to the converted. And when you put yourself in a position where you're offering yourself naked, maybe metaphorically, maybe not, to someone and going, these are my ideas, and maybe you would find them of use. What an awesome thing when that earns you someone's trust and their willingness to share their story with you in return.
Yeah.
I'm changed more often than not by those people more than any other set of people in the world. Those are the stories I get to write about on my blog and have people be like, oh my God, I was crying in my office, it was great. And I'm like, I wouldn't have heard that story if I had the meat suit on. I wouldn't be that person.
Love it. So the name of this project is Good Life Project.
Yeah.
So when I offer that term out to you, to live a good life, what does it mean to you?
It means that I'll know that I will have lived at least half of my life. Right now, I'll call it the better half. Being exactly who I am. And I can be honest about it. I don't have to apologize for it. And that maybe along the way, I'll have helped a few people feel the same way. I think that's a pretty good life. And, maybe some jalapeno poppers. But,
I love it. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.
We could probably keep jamming for a long time here. So, my guest today has been Erika Napoletano. I'm Jonathan Fields, signing off for Good Life Project.